Liz Dawson had the one next door, looked right out.
Well, no, maybe only if you're speaking, but Mr. Chairman, all right. So we don't want to be in charge of that. We're going to have about 15, 20 minutes. Good. How are you?
Newhouse is getting a promotion this morning. Good. Top Republican.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's call the hearing to order. Good afternoon. Today we gather to discuss the fiscal year 2021 budget request for the House of Representatives. To begin, I would like to welcome the officers and officials of the House to our subcommittee hearing. Testifying before us are the Honorable Cheryl Johnson, our Clerk of the House, the Honorable Paul Irving, Sergeant at Arms, and the Honorable Bill Kiko, Chief Administrative Officer. Before we start with the testimonies, I'd like to take time to thank all of the officers, officials, and their staffs for the extraordinary work over the past year. The fiscal year 2021 budget request for the House of Representatives is $1.5 billion, which is a $165 million increase over the fiscal year 2020 enacted level. This request will allow us, members, an opportunity to retain and hire the best and brightest. The work we do here is important, and it requires a certain set of skills to negotiate legislation that will move our country forward. While this is a healthy request and would provide members and committees the resources necessary for us to represent our constituents by affecting policy and implementing laws that will address our country's critical needs, we have to be realistic because the budget caps only allow for a $2.5 billion increase across all non-defense agencies. This limited increase concerns me especially when looking at the House of Representatives because for far too long we have put many of this body's issues on the back burner. At some point we have to make investments to protect this institution to ensure it is in good shape for the next generation of leaders. To give everyone some food for thought, the fiscal year 2011 enacted level for the House was $1.3 billion. The fiscal year 2020 enacted level was $1.4 billion, just a $100 million increase since 2011. And so with that in mind, I look forward to each of you in your testimonies today. At this time, I will yield to my colleague, Mr. Newhouse. Do you have any opening statements?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd also like to welcome back to our committee the three principals for the House, Mr. Phil Kiko, Chief Administrative Officer, Ms. Cheryl Johnson, our Clerk, and Mr. Paul Irving, our Sergeant at Arms. Welcome to all of you. The fiscal year 2021 budget request for the House agencies, as the Chairman just says, is $1.531 billion, which is $165 million above the current enacted levels. Each of you have a vital role to ensure the House can function for the American people. The House Sergeant at Arms Office oversees the security of members of Congress, of staff, and certainly visitors at the Capitol complex. The CAO provides the important administrative, technical, and operational support so members can focus on performing their constitutional duties. And the House Clerk issues procedural assistance and support for orderly conduct of the House, official business of the House. So I'd like to thank each of you for your work so that this institution can run smoothly in a safe and secure environment. I'd also like to thank and welcome the attending physician for participating in today's hearing. Certainly with the coronavirus outbreak reaching the United States, and as you know, in the state of Washington, it's rearing its ugly head very much. It's imperative that our medical officers in the halls of Congress have the proper policies in place to ensure that they can communicate with and inform House and Senate offices of any procedures or events relating to the coronavirus and the Capitol complex. So with that, again, welcome to all of you. I look forward to working with each of you with the challenges facing us in fiscal year 2021. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, sir. Without objection, each of your written testimonies will be made part of the record. With this in mind, please summarize your statement and highlight your efforts of the past year to the subcommittee. After your statement, we will move to the question and answer. Madam Clerk, we'll start with you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Ryan, Mr. Newhouse, members of the subcommittee. Thank you for this opportunity to testify about the operations and fiscal year 2021 budget requests of the Office of the Clerk. As you are aware, the Office of the Clerk plays a central role in the legislative activities of the House. Clerk staff facilitate House floor proceedings and operate the electronic voting system, upgrade chamber technology, produce the constitutionally mandated House Journal, transmit messages to the Senate, and provide streaming video and legislative updates via the Office of the Clerk website. During 2019, our Office of Legislative Operations processed 6,465 introduced measures and supported 784 hours of House floor activity. There were 586 engrossed bills totaling 20,000 pages. The defense bill alone totaled 1,974 pages and included 433 amendments. A single amendment might require hundreds of changes to a bill. Adding the 433 amendments to the defense bill took 4 enrolling clerks 2 weeks to insert these changes. Then once the changes were made, enrolling clerks labored another 6 days to read the engrossed bill by paragraphing. That meant reading first word, last word of each paragraph, and in some cases, reading each amendment word for word. In addition to floor support, the clerk office supports committee hearings here on Capitol Hill and field hearings across the country. The official reporters provide reporting services for all committee hearings, markups, and depositions, as well as many investigative interviews. Here today we have Sherry Brine from the clerk's office. During 2019, our Office of Official Reporters provided stenographic and editing services for more than 1,600 committee hearings and depositions, roughly a 40% increase in the number of committee hearings compared to 2018. The office also performs many other functions outside the chamber to assist the House with its operations, including administering the filing of and public access to all financial disclosure forms, providing members with legal counsel and training on employment matters, including anti-harassment, anti-discrimination laws, and other issues arising under the Congressional Accountability Act, managing any congressional offices that become vacant. Currently, we have 5 vacant offices that we are managing. We are able to carry out our operations because of the subcommittee's ongoing support. For fiscal year 2021, we respectfully request $32.8 million. This request is roughly $2 million or 7% above the fiscal year 2020 enacted funding level and excludes all non-recurring costs. Approximately 2/3 of the requested increase, or $1.4 million, would cover mandatory personnel expenses, such as COLAs, the personnel-based adjustment, and longevity increases. The remainder of the increase, or $640,000, along with base funding, would support these priorities: business continuity, disaster recovery, contractor support for projects such as the clerk's website, financial disclosure filing system, LIMS, and the comparative print project. Please note, our request does not include funding to implement recommendations made by the House Select Committee on Modernization. Should the House pass the resolution, I would ask the subcommittee for supplemental funding to carry out our responsibilities. Members of the subcommittee, I would like to invite you all to tour the clerk's operations firsthand. The chairman did recently. I think he would agree that we have a remarkable organization. He was able to view a House journal from 1886, the 49th Congress. He compared that journal to the current one, compiled by hand each day that we are in session in the same manner as it was more than 200 years ago. You'd also meet the team of clerks, official reporters, technology specialists, and others behind the scenes. We have a talented and diverse staff. People like Bob Rhoda. Bob Rhoda has been here 32 years, and he's still just as passionate today as he was 32 years ago. He serves as an enrolling clerk. Mr. Rhoda says, and I quote, "I view each enrolled bill as a finished product that I helped to create." Bob Rhoda is but one of the clerk's 200 professionally dedicated and highly skilled staff who provide enormous support to the House. Thank you again for this opportunity to testify, and I look forward to your questions.
Serving.
Good afternoon, Chairman Ryan, Ranking Member Butler, and members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to present the Office of the Sergeant at Arms budget request for fiscal year 2021. It is an honor and a privilege to serve this institution, and I look forward to continuing to partner with the committee as this year progresses. Since the first Congress, the daily responsibilities and expectations of the Sergeant at Arms have changed significantly. Members of Congress continue to receive an unprecedented number of threats and threatening communications, mandating a proactive approach to our security posture, which my office has worked to implement and refine over the past several years. We remain focused on ensuring appropriate physical security protection for members, whether they are in their districts, in Washington, D.C., or elsewhere, and have employed a multifaceted effort to complement sound security practices for members and their staff as we continue to build upon the success of the District Office Security Program. The Office of the Sergeant at Arms proactively interfaces with members' offices to coordinate security for off-campus events in the Washington, D.C. area, districts, or elsewhere. These protective measures can lead to local law enforcement support, additional assistance by my office, or a Capitol Police deployment. As an example of these activities, my office and the Capitol Police coordinated law enforcement support for more than 765 district events in fiscal year 19. These include public appearances and events hosted or attended by members. And in conjunction with the Capitol Police, my office has performed 44 security awareness briefings for members' offices last year. Our District Security Service Center continues to serve as a single point of contact for district security measures and law enforcement coordination. Since its inception, just over 3 years ago, the Service Center has documented over 17,000 interactions with district office staff. During this period, the Service Center also coordinated the installation or upgrade of 540 security systems through our national contract. In addition to coordinating security upgrades, we pay for monthly services for monitoring, maintenance for the security of these offices, and include all the billing and invoicing for over 500 systems. We have recently updated our Law Enforcement Coordinator Handbook, which is being delivered the first quarter of this year. For fiscal year 21, I'm requesting funding for the Joint Audible Warning System, or JAWS. This is a shared effort with the Senate Sergeant at Arms, Architect of the Capitol, and the Capitol Police to replace the aging wireless annunciator system. The funding requested will help procure a joint non-cell tower encrypted radio frequency transmission system and deliver new devices to all House offices. The JAWS effort, in conjunction with other existing notification capabilities, will provide notification resiliency to send emergency messages to all members and staff. It is critical for us to replace the system components, including 2,500 devices currently in every office, every hearing room, meeting room, and work area on the House side of the Capitol. I'm also requesting funding to continue providing security services to member district offices through the Sergeant at Arms District Office Security Program. We carefully managed resources last year to avoid funding the contract in FY20. However, I'm requesting funds to exercise our option year so that we can continue the contract and purchase, install, and pay for maintenance and monitoring for district office security systems. Non-personnel expenses for FY21 will continue to support travel, including Sergeant at Arms approved Capitol Police advanced support of overseas leadership codels and other large-scale non-campus events attended by members. Thank you once again for the opportunity to appear before the committee. I'm so appreciative for the committee's unyielding support and partnership as we strive to maintain the delicate balance between strong security measures and a free and open access to the Capitol complex. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Chairman Ryan and Congressman Newhouse and members of the subcommittee, on behalf of the more than 700 dedicated CAO employees serving the House, I thank you for the opportunity to present our FY21 budget request. Following my testimony in March last year, we heard from the members that we need to improve, modernize, and expand our services. We took that direction in our commitment to being, quote, member-focused and service-driven, our new motto. My written testimony points to what I believe is significant progress, but much more needs to be done. The FY21 budget for the CAO is a $190.2 million request with an increase of $37 million. Today, I will focus my opening statement on what the additional money will do. This request includes $12.8 million in technology upgrades, including improving network services to district offices, as well as updates throughout the CAO to sustain our services. This is sort of the basic blocking and tackling that we need to do to provide support to member offices, payroll, IT, all that stuff. $1.7 million specifically for our cybersecurity program and related projects. $10 million in no-year funds for Select Committee on Modernization recommendations, if the committee and so desires. $12.2 million to fund existing personnel, longevities, and COLAs, and additional new positions and contractor conversions. Let me focus on our largest business unit. House Information Resources provides a wide range of technology and support services. It is responsible for maintaining the House's cybersecurity posture, website design, hosting services, network access, maintenance, telecommunications, emergency response, and technology support. This is the engine that drives all the systems of the House, and if we don't advance with the growing technology, we will be in a catch-up mode. This year's budget for technology provides for an increase of non-personnel costs of $13 million. These funds will be used for renewal of software licensing, necessary life cycle upgrades to critical systems that support human resources and payroll and benefits, and continued networking and connectivity upgrades to district offices. With regards to cybersecurity, in previous years, many of the questions posed by members related to cybersecurity. I'll give you an update. In 2019, the Office of Cybersecurity blocked an estimated $19 billion unauthorized scan probes connections that contained approximately 300 million questionable emails, including spam, and we thwarted phishing attacks and blocked more than 83,000 malicious URLs and spam. Our cybersecurity posture protects the devices we use every day, ensures the integrity of our financial and legislative and administrative systems. The request for the Cybersecurity Office is an increase of $1.7 million to enhance cybersecurity measures to align with our new cloud-based initiatives, to increase access to advanced threat assessment information, enhance mobile device protection for members and staff, and to increase cybersecurity training. As to modernization, our request includes $10 million to fund several of the recommendations of the Modernization Committee. And we can have that discussion. I'm working with the Committee on House Administration as well as to if you want to fund that much or what projects should be funded. Over the last few years, we have made modernization a priority, however, in the CAO's office. Last year, Office 365 and Microsoft Teams were rolled out in all House offices, 2 all-House offices, significant improving the collaboration, video conferencing, and remote access to House offices. In 2019, 2 Internet points of presence for the West Coast and the South Central District offices were installed. That allowed 210 district offices to utilize the new services and have much faster Internet response time, downloads, and uploads. We hope to expand that to other regions of the country. We eliminated most paper-based vouchers and are working to add digital signatures on payroll and other administrative forms. Our FY20 budget includes funds for both 25 new positions and 25 positions for contractor conversions across the CAO. By converting these positions, we will save nearly $2 million in FY21. Additionally, the overall budget will continue to maintain and expand the following roles and initiatives: the growth of the popular wellness initiatives that contribute to staff productivity and quality, support the Customer Experience Center, which connects member, committee, and leadership offices with the CAO, continue logistic support for the congressional transition, and continuing emphasis and focus on district offices. And last but not least, provide administrative, logistical, technology, financial, and consultative support for newly elected members. I'm also happy to report the House did receive its 21st consecutive clean audit opinion for FY18. So we're in good stead. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to move into the questions. Let me just say how thankful we are for your leadership. We're really, really lucky to have all of you, and I know you scrubbed your proposals as well as you could, and but we appreciate you articulating why it's important. So
yeah, thank you. I want to also say that we're really lucky to have the leadership here. You know, you're kind of new, but you jump right in and doing a good job too, Ms. Johnson. Just a couple side questions. First thing, we specialize here. I specialize in national security and intelligence, defense approach, and that type of thing. You do too, by the way. I raised the issue last year about security clearances and how long it takes. Overclassification is making sure that our staff now, not the intel staff or the defense approach staff, we just can't get information. And we're running like crazy, 3 or 4 hearings a day and whatever. And I know, too, and I don't know if you have these numbers, and this question is really to you, Paul, Phil, the issue of how many clearances that the Senate has versus what the House has, and what we can do about this issue, because it's getting worse, and we can't do our jobs when our staff can't get the information to talk to us about things that we deal with in that realm where you need a clearance. Any comments?
I think it's more.
Yours, Paul?
It's
okay,
more
whatever,
in my domain. So you raised a couple of very salient issues. One is the number of clearances we have. The other is the time that it takes to obtain a clearance. And as you know, we work very closely with the executive branch, namely Department of Defense, to get those clearances expedited as soon as possible. They had a backlog, as you remember, for quite a few years when OPM was doing it. Now we've got Defense.
And I represent NSA, so they do their own, and that's pretty efficient. So
yes,
okay.
yes. Some agencies, some executive branch agencies actually do their own, and just for that very reason, that the time, the backlog is just so extensive when you get 1 or 2 agencies doing all the backgrounds. We voiced the concern, so I just want to assure you that we've certainly followed up with them, but to a certain extent, we're at their mercy when it comes to their investigators.
Whose mercy?
Well, the Defense Department agency that does all the clearances.
Do you have any suggestions of what we can do to do something?
We're working extensively with them. I'll come back to you with some ideas, but I think we've done pretty much everything we can to reduce the backlog. I will say when it comes to the number of clearances, that is something that we work on with leadership and the committees of jurisdiction here to determine how many clearances each office should have. either a TS or SCI.
This is just a housekeeping issue. We have to have our votes, and a lot of us, when we go outside in between the votes, and those bells, you can't hear them half the time. We've been working on this issue for complaining 10 years. Is there anyone, Cheryl, I don't know if this is under your bailiwick, that can make sure that we get louder bells outside so we don't miss votes? We literally can be out and the vote is being called, we don't hear the bell. Could somebody try to do something about it? This has been a 10-year problem, and it doesn't seem that we should be able to deal with that, the issue of the bells that are louder, so we can hear the votes. Could somebody just take that and run with it or whatever, get back to me?
Maybe we can work with the architect of the Capitol as well on that.
Yeah. Outside where we are, and that's all, just that one area.
Yeah, just to clarify, I mean, you could literally be on the steps outside of the House chamber, just outside on a phone call, and you can't hear the bells.
I'm an Under Armour guy, but what's the Nike phrase? Just do it. I also want to acknowledge, too, Dr. Monahan. I've been involved with medical issues, and I'm very active at University of Maryland Hospital. I think he's got one of the best operations, one of the best docs we can have. It's one of the benefits we have here. So, Dr. Monahan, you and your team do a great job. Thanks for looking after us. You're back.
Newhouse.
Again, thank all of you for being here with us this afternoon to talk about the budget requests. One overriding question that I'll probably at least ask all of you to think about. The chairman has been very clear, and everybody that's coming before us, to anticipate us not being able to honor requests fully, so not to put words in the chairman's mouth, but I just at some point want to hear from you what impacts, if we cannot fully fund your requests, what are we going to see different? What change? How will you respond to that? What would be your way of dealing with those issues? But I wanted to talk first a couple things, probably to you, Mr. Sergeant at Arms. First, when the Capitol Police was in front of us earlier this year, we talked a little bit about the incident. I think it was last November, and I guess I would characterize the failure of the mass notification system to fully inform people of what was going on. Could you tell me, from your perspective, what went wrong? What have we learned moving forward? How are we going to prevent that kind of an issue from happening again?
Yes, I can assure the committee that will not happen again. It was an aircon, what we call an aircon, so a threat from the air. There was an anomaly on the radar that the command center had trouble identifying, and we have a phased approach. Capitol Police, as you know, as the first responders, have a phased approach. We don't necessarily notify everyone of what's going on behind the scenes, but we have a color-coded system, and they go from what we call a blue to a yellow to an orange to a red. Normally, no one here would know about it until we go to a red, which is when we actually evacuate the campus, because the threat is so close. In this case, we were between a yellow and a red. We're at what we call condition orange. And there was not a notification protocol for a condition orange, because orange was designed at the time, or the thought at the time was, we would only be at orange for maybe 30 seconds to a minute, because you're either going straight up to red or back down to yellow. The problem was we were at orange for an extended period of time because we had an unidentified object, and
how much time was that?
Oh, it was a good 25 minutes plus.
Okay.
And in hindsight, we've done a lot of after action on this, I can assure you. Someone in the command center probably should have said, hey, you know what, we've been doing this for an extended period of time. Even though we don't have a notification protocol for orange, we should make a notification. But that didn't happen. We've since retooled, and there will be a notification for an orange. But again, at the time, the concept was we're not going to be at that condition for an extended period of time, and the Capitol Police is very process-based, and they should be, because everything should have a procedure in terms of when notifications are made and when they shouldn't be made. But that slipped through the cracks. It won't happen again, and we've fixed that.
Okay. And how do we prevent these anomalies from happening on radar screens? That's above your pay grade, maybe. I don't know.
That's an excellent question, and that's a tough one. Technology, if you may remember, we had the issue maybe 6, 7 years ago with an ultralight. We had trouble identifying the ultralight, and it gets to the point where technology is only so good, and if you get something that is below a certain level, and I can't get into in this forum here, but we only have so much capability on radar. We do the best that we can, and sometimes we have anomalies and we're just not sure.
Sure. Okay. I appreciate that.
So, but we're working with our all of our intelligence and law enforcement and military partners to do as best we can to maintain a clear airspace.
Okay. Good.
And secure airspace.
Thank you. A lot of people are interested in that, as you can imagine.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson, you, in your short tenure, but just over a year now, right?
Yes.
When you came to see me last week, you talked a little bit about some of the effort that you have put into saving money, cost-saving measures. And I just wanted to let you expound on that, talk a little bit about some of the things areas that you've been able to find that in retrospect seems to be fairly easy, but were certainly significant.
As I stated last week, that having a new set of eyes just on where the clerk's funds are going, about 98% of it is non-discretionary and really goes towards salaries and most of our technology projects. So there's not a lot of room for any discretion. But one of the things I looked at was at our publications. We do have some discretion there, and learned that we were spending a substantial amount of money on newspapers. And so I have managed to cut about $18,000 or $20,000 just from newspaper publications, because most of it is read online anyway. So that was one source of cutting funding, and continuing to look at other sources. Again, it's not a lot, but I will continue to scrub as much as I can.
Yeah. I commend you for that, and thank you. My time is up, but I just want to repeat, I appreciate very much, and I think all of us do, all of the fine work that you and the people that work with you do, including our attending physician. So thank you very much, and we look forward to working with you on this year's budget.
Thank you, Mr. Newhouse. Ms. Clark?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank all of you for being here. We truly appreciate it, and we appreciate the personal visits as well. And to the power corner over here, we thank you for all your work as well. My questions, if you don't mind, are for Wade Ballou, if you wouldn't mind addressing a few of those. First, I want to start by extending our condolences on the loss of Fiona Heckscher. She was a delight to work with in our office, and your staff, as always, has picked up her work and continued it, and we just really appreciate that. And please extend our heartfelt thoughts and prayers at her loss to all of you. And I did want to speak to you. I'm very aware of the clock going, about how overworked your office is. And I think that as I looked over your budget request, I want to make sure that you have the capacity to hire to 87, but you currently have 76 employees. Can you do that hiring within your FY21 budget request?
Yes, ma'am, we are able to hire within our request due to a combination of retiring senior members, and then when hiring a new attorney, the cost in terms of salary for that attorney is about half of the senior attorney. And so with the turnover, we are able to work within that request.
Great. One of the barriers that you cited to recruiting and retaining, and I know this goes across many of our staffs, is student loans is a way that we can use very effectively as a tool for recruitment. The program has a lifetime cap of $60,000, which is significantly below the $145,000 in debt that the average law student in this country graduates with, $145,000. If we raise this cap to $80,000, do you think that would help with your recruitment?
That would definitely help. One of my delights is when I sign one of the student loan forms for one of our young attorneys. It definitely helps them to come to the office and remain in the office.
And to Mr. Kiko, I believe that I am correct that even if we raise that cap to 80,000, because we still have office caps, we would not be overall increasing the liability for the house. Is that right?
That's my understanding.
Okay, great. One other thing, we have run into the situation several times where there are just fine tuning that we need to do, but because of the way it's set up in your office, we have to have lawyers come back and spend time looking at fairly minor edits. I hate to compare favorably the Senate to the House. That hurts me a little. But Senate Ledge Council has really avoided that issue by providing a formatted Word document where the changes can be tracked. We have asked in one of our bills, we had very, very simple changes from Department of Justice, and we asked if we could access your formatting software, and we're told no. Have you considered providing members' offices with access to that software so that we can make better use of your attorney's time?
Yes, ma'am. So the software that we're using is XML. It's provided actually through the clerk's office, and it's the software that produces the legislation in the XML format. Off of that software, we are able to produce a Word document. Right now, that process is not automated, and for any particular bill, it does not take long for us to produce a Word document. In the aggregate, however, the amount of time taken would be large. So I've also begun conversations with legislative computer systems in the clerk's office about automating our production software so that in addition to the PDF that we produce and the XML that we attach to every PDF file that we send out, we can also produce a related Word file.
Great. Well, we look forward to working with you. We'd love to do that. And do you have any idea why the Senate and House bills have such totally different formats? That seems to be another area where we could really expedite if the Senate would just see it our way.
Of course. The formats generally should be the same or very similar. The underlying XML is the same because that's the legislative data form that's used throughout the process. It is what is produced at GPO and is used later downstream at Congress.gov.
Huh. Yeah, that certainly hasn't been our experience. Our bills, they say the same things, but come back looking completely different when the Senate has changed it. But thank you. I see my time has expired. Thank you all again.
Mr. Case.
Thank you, Mr. Irving. I just wanted to pick up, you were commenting a little bit about district security, and I think that's unfortunately a reality for all of us. When we go back to our districts, we want to engage, and yet we need to take the appropriate precautions for the folks that join our events. In my case, for example, you basically line up the Honolulu Police Department to cover me, which I appreciate you doing that, and I appreciate what they do for me in district, and I'm sure that's similar for all of us. And I'm just, you said that these requests were increasing, as would be a natural expectation. Are they reimbursed at all by Congress, or do they do that on, well, first of all, who is they? Is that always the local police department, or are there other ways that you provide district security or foster and facilitate it?
Well, it depends on the area, but it could be multiple jurisdictions. We may have a sheriff's department that's near a police department, and we might get assistance from both. Many times it's manpower dependent. So it could be a local, a county, a state. Sometimes the state police will assist. If we can't get local, county, or state, then I will make a phone call to the FBI or Secret Service or another Homeland Security related federal agency to assist. So we do whatever we can to get law enforcement support to our members everywhere, because the Capitol Police can't be there. Many times we just don't have the time to respond. An event may be that day or the next day. To answer your question in terms of reimbursement, they are not reimbursed. These police departments do it, to cover the health, safety, welfare of their citizens, and they do it at our request. And I have to say that I spend a lot of time thanking chiefs and sheriffs for the time that they spend assisting us. Sometimes we will send a Capitol Police deployment, but that is only in a rare circumstance because it's so manpower intensive for the Capitol Police, and that's only if we cannot get the local support, at that location. But I have to say, we do hat and glove. We really do thank our partners in law enforcement everywhere, because they usually do step up, but it's a labor for them.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. They do it selflessly, and we are grateful for that. But I wonder sometimes whether we should, and maybe this not really the question for the current budget cycle, but I do wonder sometimes whether with these increases, it is the fair thing for us to do, to provide some kind of reimbursement in some way, shape, or form. Has that ever been a discussion within your office? Or?
Well, it has, and I have to say, back from my prior life at the Secret Service, it was a very big part of the discussion. And at the time, again, the service, we never did reimburse, because it becomes a tough thing. The next thing you know, police departments will be submitting bills for a lot of things that sort of get out on the periphery. There's sometimes very targeted reimbursement for major events like the political conventions, where the local police departments will receive some federal assistance and reimbursement. But on a case-by-case basis, when it comes to members sponsoring, having events in their districts, it becomes a little bit of a tough line of what should be reimbursed and what shouldn't be. So we've stayed away from it.
Okay, thank you. I'll yield back in the interest of time. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Case. So I think what we're going to do here is take a real quick recess. We're going to go up with 2 quick votes. We'll catch the end of this first one. We'll do the second one, and we'll come back down maybe with some reinforcements too. So committee is in recess for a few minutes.
Okay.
Test, test. Test. That's it. That's the one. Okay. Test, 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 test. You're good. Okay, so I gotta put it inside. Test, 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 test. Okay. Test, 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 test. Okay. Test, 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 test. So I know what was the problem. I know what was the problem. The problem, yeah, was with the microflex. Okay. We're good.
We're going to gavel the committee back, and we are in the question and answer. Ms. Ferrer Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I was hoping to ask a few questions of our attending physician, if that's,
Dr. Monahan, you're welcome
Come
to
on
come
up.
up and those should be working, Dr. Monahan. Now that you're officially at the table, we want to thank you for all your great work. I know many members rely on you and your team, and that's just the most professional operation. I think there's a move afoot to have one of your offices in every one of our congressional districts so we can access.
Yeah, right?
We can access. Ms. Ferrer Butler.
thank you so much. And I echo that. I think we are very fortunate that you've chosen to serve here and take care of really the Capitol complex and the members, the staff, and the visitors that come who have and experience emergencies when they're here visiting their nation's capital. There are thousands and thousands of people who come and go through these doors, and you know, we often have people who are thinking about their physical security, right? But their health security is just as critical. And being from Washington State and spending a lot of time, in fact, that's where I was sometime in the last hour or two, was at the White House with a bipartisan group talking with Vice President Pence about coronavirus. We talked with our governor, our state folks yesterday about what's happening in Washington State. And it got me thinking, and we talked about this last week, the chairman and I, just about what is happening here on Capitol Hill with regard to staff and visitors, and what types of planning, and this might be a little bit of everybody, but what types of thought is going into planning for the virus that's going to be with us for some time, and how we're in the mitigation and treatment phase, and how do we mitigate, make sure people have access. And then I wanted to ask kind of your broad scope on that, and then a little bit about supplies and such. So I'll turn it over.
Presently, I'm in consultation with the leadership offices of both the House and the Senate on a pretty regular basis on this event as events evolve. We are closely aligned with the Centers for Disease Control recommendations and with the District of Columbia public health authorities with regard to the support of this capital region. There are various prerogatives leadership may employ with regard to access to the Capitol, limitations, et cetera, that would be part of a matrix of a decision process that they would develop, largely driven by external events of our external partners, such as District of Columbia, federal agencies, other institutions, and other factors involving things such as the D.C. public schools, for instance.
In terms of what, so that in my mind goes to, you know, closures or social distancing or limitations. Here physically, if the Capitol can, and leadership obviously is going to have their impact on who comes to work when, whether we get into essentials, but that's a little bit further down the road. I mean, the reality that we are living in an area, we might not get shut down, but people amongst us will be or possibly could be sick. And is your office preparing, or are there preparations being made with regard to communicating to member offices, best practices and how to keep people safe or mitigate risk, so to speak?
Yes. We have a website that lists current situation summaries, and that incorporates our current advice to member offices with regard to practices to keep their own employees safe, practices for visitors, and mostly reiterations of the CDC guidelines now, which are our best defense at this time. There will be future evolutions should a vaccine be developed that would involve distribution, et cetera, to our community that would have yet to be determined.
Do you feel like you have enough supplies? Do you have enough, whether it's, I don't know. I don't want to read any hysterical situation or scenario into it, but do you feel like you have the supplies and such necessary here should, we experience some, should there be something of an outbreak?
Yes, so I think we're adequately prepared by way of resources to protect our first response personnel and provide that service to the Capitol community for any number of scenarios that might arise.
And I assume this was probably could have been something we could have talked to about the security force and the police force. I assume those are also, all that is being considered as well?
Yes, indeed. We've been in extensive discussions with the Capitol Police, as well as the other House officers, the Chief Administrative Officer, the Clerk, the architect on preparations. Again, working very closely with Dr. Monahan and his team, but on preparations here in the greater Washington area, the capital, also focusing on getting information out to our district offices so that they have their COOP plans in place, and also, again, working to ensure that if COOP plans do need to get somehow activated, thank you, then what the proper protocols are for that. The Chief Administrative Officer, I know, has a big piece in this relative to the working remotely. So yes, we're all in discussion and coordinating very closely, and we'll be prepared.
Good. I think with that, I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Dr. Monahan, while we have you here, so this is a virus. They say it's a lot like a flu virus. Can you just talk a little bit about, you know, what it is, what it does, who it affects? It seems like it's targeting people who already have.
Yeah. The virus now circulating is one that exists in nature. We believe that it resides typically in the bat population and through an intermediate animal not yet identified became in contact with human populations. So in the right mix of the so-called animal market in Wuhan, China, and the high density population, the virus has leapt from an animal vector into humans. The virus is similar to the head cold viruses that circulate among us all the time. It's a family of viruses known as the coronavirus. It's called that based upon its shape of a crown under electron microscope magnification and viewing. It's a general term. The virus is constructed of an RNA genetic code of a sequence of amino acids, and that scientists have studied that carefully and have published that as great public service out to the scientific community of the world, and United States scientists that also have investigated that. The virus exists in our environment as attached to particles, typically of either saliva or mucus, that a person coughs or sneezes. Depending on how close you sit to a person who's infected, they'll produce this particle into the air. It will either enter your nose and you'll inhale it, or attach to your face and you'll touch it, or attach to an environmental surface and you will transfer it to your face as how you acquire the infection. The virus then enters the body, and for a period of days, the person feels relatively well. It's called the incubation period. So for, say, 4 to 9 days, a person has minimal or no symptoms. That's a very important consideration in the nation's response to this particular virus, and that a substantial amount of virus replication in the nose and throat takes place before the person is visibly ill. Unlike other viruses we've dealt with in the past, like the SARS virus and the MERS, Middle East Respiratory Viral Syndrome, a person would be hard to detect. In fact, the majority of patients in the Chinese experience and in the Diamond Princess cruise ship experience did not have any physical sign at the time of their diagnosis, such as a fever that you could detect by monitoring temperatures, for instance. Less than half did. Once the virus then grows in the mouth and throat up to some level, the body begins to respond. The virus descends into the lungs, where it attaches to what's called the cilia, or hair cells inside the lung. And these are vital little structures in the lung that sweep mucus out of our airways. When those cells are attached by the virus grows inside, replicates, and the cell is injured. And so that function becomes lost in the lung, where a person accumulates large amounts of the naturally occurring mucus secretions in their lung. In that setting, some people will then not get sicker than that. They'll have a head cold-like illness that occurs about 80%. If there are any bright spots in this difficult situation, it's that the vast majority of people who acquire this infection will feel ill for several days and then recover on their own without medicines or other intervention. About 80% of people will recover. About 20% of people, the virus will go on to damage the lung and lead to pooling of secretions in the lung, which sets the stage for pneumonia. Of those who get the pneumonia, about 1 out of 7 will have a severe pneumonia that will threaten their ability to take every breath, and oxygen in the blood will fall down low, and they're at risk for suffocation. In that instance, doctors and nurses in an intensive care unit would step in with machines to take over the work of breathing, known as intubation and mechanical ventilation. The high art of intensive care unit care, very labor intensive, very resource intensive, and focused on that number of individuals. And then some will recover, but others will go on to develop other failure of organ systems and lead to their death. So the fatality rate depends upon many factors. That's an important number that people seek. And the chance of dying from the infection overall is probably in the 1 to 2% range. For those who are of advanced age, the risk is much higher because they tend to have other diseases such as compromise of their lung function, emphysema, chronic bronchitis, diabetes, heart disease, and all those things kind of conspire against the person at the time of their severe illness. So the chance of death increases quite a bit over age 80. It begins to increase over age 70. It's modest in the 50s and 60s and very low in much younger people. In fact, children have a very low risk of getting the severe form of pneumonia that threatens their life. So one of the issues that comes up is that the most vulnerable of people are at the highest risk of death, and that's a major consideration, as you see playing out now in the state of Washington in the long-term care facility, where people are in advanced age and various debilitating health conditions, and the virus, that's kind of the prime domain for the worst experience of survival.
I wish you were a little smarter, Doc.
Can
we please get some talent around here? I have no further questions. We appreciate you. We love you, and this is why all the members respect you and you know, and have such affection for you. So we appreciate you and your team. So you can hang out here if you want. If not,
I'd like to return to the
I'm going to go to
business of the
Phil,
Capitol
see if you can
the
follow up on
excuse.
that.
Please don't. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Appreciate it. So I want to get into the JAWS, the question about the Joint Audible Warning System. So after the heat, you talked about the heat mapping and all of that. After the heat mapping is completed and you have a good idea of the hard-to-reach places in the Capitol, how do you address the locations that will be hard to get signals to? What's the solution to that?
Well, the heat mapping would help us determine where additional equipment is needed to reach those areas.
So you just put up another, okay, easily solved.
Yes.
Do you have any concerns that this is growing beyond the original scope of what we were thinking about the JAWS system?
No. There's concern that is the capability, will we have the capability to reach all those areas you know, with a radio frequency? My concern has always been that we don't have a whole lot of vendors that are capable, so it's a limited pool. But I think that we've worked very closely with the architect, with the Senate Sergeant at Arms, with the Capitol Police to identify the resources or the requirements needed for this system. And the teams know that they're abiding by those requirements and nothing else. And if this heat mapping doesn't yield results, then we'll have to refocus our efforts.
Okay.
But
right.
I'm comfortable with the way it's going.
Okay, just keep us in the loop. And I know someone asked you earlier, I think Mr. Newhouse, about the warning system and the radar and the plane and all that. We are engaging the Capitol Police to do a meeting with them, just to do a debrief on it.
Yes.
We'd love for you to be a part of that.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In fact, we're going to follow up on that. I would recommend we do that in the SCIF so we can get into some of the other classified. So, yeah, absolutely. We will set that up.
We're trying to get everybody's schedule.
We'll do, it'll be air con, and then we'll talk about some of the residual issues we had with the radar and airspace.
Yeah, we want to hear that, too. Ms. Johnson, thank you. We had a great tour, as you mentioned in your testimony. Amazing work. Please give our regards to everybody. Bob,
Bob
that was
Rhoda.
the guy way in the back. Yeah, we toured it, and we went way in the back. And Bob was back there in this little cubicle, and it was just amazing to see him do that work and literally reading through all of the bills and the amendments, and just amazing. And what just as a side note, and you mentioned it about this has been going on 200 years plus.
Tomorrow, March 4th, is 231
is that
years
right?
since Congress first convened.
We'll send the cake over to. But to tie it back to because I think we're all so busy, and the country obviously is getting a lot of information about a lot of different things. It's I think so important to really have that touchstone of like this has been going on a long time, and this is what holds the whole thing together, is that what's in those documents matters, and we all have agreed to adhere to the laws that are passed and the bills that go into law and all of that. So I just think it's really important. I encourage every member to take a tour. I hope not to overwhelm you, but to get back and see everything you're doing. You talked a little bit about the modernization, and we talked about this in our private meeting. I know your budget doesn't request any additional funds for full-time employees, but you could be tasked, in addition to Phil, with trying to absorb some of that. I'm assuming that at this point, given the difficulties already with the budget, that you do not have the money to absorb any of the modernization requests.
Mr. Chairman, we would not. And a lot of what's requested, we are not even aware of the costs because we have not done an assessment of, say, how much it would cost for a second display board on the House floor, or what it would cost to provide closed captioning for committee hearings. We know that for the floor action, we pay roughly $500,000 a year for closed captioning. So to have it done for last year, we had more than 1,600 committee hearings. So to have closed captioning for each committee hearing would be pretty substantial.
Those are committees, subcommittees,
Yes, yes.
would be 1,600.
Yeah, 1,600
Yeah.
meetings that we covered.
Phil, I guess this is for you too, I mean, and really all of you. So, because tomorrow we're going to hear from the members, Congressman Graves and Congressman Kilmer, on the modernization. And so, Phil, if you could help us, just how are we going to figure out how much all of these things cost? I mean, are you the best person to kind of go through? I know you asked for 10 million. Have you gone through the list, or you wait until it gets out of committee, and how do we?
I've gone through the list. It's my understanding there's going to be a bill that'll be acted on soon, and then I'll see what it looks like. I mean, there are modernization things that can be done that don't have a lot of cost. You know, like one of the issues was bulk purchasing. I mean, bulk purchasing, if you do that, you can save money for the house. You know what I mean? Not necessarily with members. You know what I mean? If we would bulk purchase some of the computers, we might be able to save money rather than it being purchased out of the MRA. We are selling computers, you know, in the gift shop at a lower price. We've looked at some of those, and we think that $10 million was just a stake in the ground that I put because I thought modernization would need some of the efforts would need money. But I mean, we've been trying to modernize some things just without money, like Office 365, getting into the cloud, those kind of things. You know what I mean? There are some things that we can do just to make things better and run better. But we've looked at the modernization things, and we're ready to engage in a discussion back and forth as with committees on how you want to handle it and how much things would cost. I know in the original legislation that it tasked the CA with a lot of reports, you know, that the Modernization Committee wanted us to write, to look at things. And I think there were some time frames in which we were to look at these issues. So that's we can do that.
So I know the clerk, you talked about most of your increase was for increases that
Are mandatory.
Are
Most of
mandatory.
2/3 of the 2 million I've requested mandatory salary adjustments, the COLA, the longevity increase, the base personnel adjustment.
and out of your 36 million, I think a good chunk of it was the same.
Yeah, so is that exactly?
I mean, because that's the argument we're making to, you know, people,
Well, it's true.
that a lot of this stuff is mandatory, and we try to keep good staff, and people deserve to get the next step up. And
Well, I agree with that, and some of the upgrades I have in my budget are just, we have to upgrade systems that are supporting the house, you know, whether it's financial systems. Some of the finance systems are, the contractors, they're now going into the cloud, and some of the systems are not in the cloud, so we have to move into the cloud or they're not going to be upgraded. So some of this stuff we just have to do. I mean, we have been looking for ways to save money, like I said earlier, in my testimony, I can save $2 million by converting some of our contractors, you know, that move furniture around all the time. I can save $2 million by converting them to CAO employees, and that's a given. And there's more of that we can do too, not just to willy-nilly, you know, do that, but we could save money. You know, you lose a little bit of, sometimes you want a contractor that's very well trained and up to speed on the latest and greatest technology, but some of the stuff we're just going to need, and if we convert, we can save money.
Mm-hmm. One of the things you mentioned in your testimony is that the budget will expand services to House community and ease the administrative burden on House offices. Can you explain what this means and how your request would support that?
Well,
especially with regard to the MRA, is there things that you can do that?
Well, we're in the process of, you know, continuing to look at these things. We want to eliminate paper forms, so that's coming down the road. We want to have simplified purchasing for members' offices. We want to streamline services that we have. So there's, you know, we want to have situations where the members' offices don't have to figure out which office to call. You know, so we want to have one of the things we'd like to do is when a member calls in an office for a service, no matter where they call, we know what they have called about in the past, sort of like, you know, companies do. And we would just want to have the best service that we could have. It's not like you got to call HIR, you're going to call the finance office. They can call, but we need some software, you know, to develop, you know, to do those kind of things. We like to have it so you can purchase things like you do off of Amazon. You know, just we're looking at systems like that. You can just do it, and it automatically gives you the best price. You know, no matter what, member offices can do that. We have a lot of those things that are sort of in the queue that would make life easier, and some of it would save money. We're always looking for ways, though, to save money, and I just don't like to come up here with my tin cup out here and, you know, and ask for more money. I think it's incumbent, you know, to try to save some money too and make the processes better. We had a lot of archaic processes that we've been trying to eliminate to make things better.
Mm-hmm. We've talked a lot about wellness over the last couple years, and we continue to push with regard to the House Wellness Program, which we're all really excited about. It's now getting off the ground and getting people in better health, because every meeting we have, it's like, well, where's your money going? Well, more healthcare costs, higher healthcare costs. So one of the things we talked about is really tailoring our wellness approach to certain issues that maybe the vast majority of people on the Hill are dealing with and that are driving up to healthcare costs. So we discussed some of the roadblocks that you ran into, Phil, trying to get me healthcare data. And what help do you need from us so that we can begin to try to get this data? Not that we want to get in anybody's personal business, but if we have a wellness program set up that's going to attack, you know, and give increased quality of life and help people get healthy and have nutrition and diet and mindfulness training and financial literacy and all these things that our workers are dealing with, we want to be able to better target that. So what were some of the roadblocks?
Well, I think that, you know, we had this conversation, you know, late last year about looking at some of this healthcare information, and we engaged OPM, you know, that has a lot of this data. We engaged DC Health Links, and we engaged some of that, and we were not able to, while they gave us information on you know, the number of people that were covered and how much the costs increased and those kind of things, we were not able to get the, you know, any kind of even sort of macro healthcare information about what people, you know, what they were, you know, the money was being used for, you know, and how they circulate. So we were trying to find that. The big healthcare providers have not said no, but they haven't said yes, you know, and I mean, we're still trying to break that out of them. What we have done though, we have tried to engage, and we haven't stopped, but it would be helpful, we could use your help to try to get that information. There's all information that's privacy protected and stuff like that, and I'm not trying to get individual data. I just like to get some macro kind of data on various things so we could, as you say, tailor some of our programs to that. We are engaging the healthcare companies in what kind of programs do they use for wellness? What is successful with wellness in the providers in the private sector and even here? We're trying to find that information. And if we could get that information, then we could, even if we're not totally successful on the first part, they're funding stuff that's successful, and they're funding things that are going to reduce healthcare costs with wellness. So if we could sort of find out what some of that is, then we might be able to have we could tailor some of our things that way. So we're that's one of the things we're doing, and I'm sort of hoping that I think we're going to have some success on that.
Great.
But I just think that having this discussion at the committee, subcommittee might, give a little telegraph that, we're interested in these kind of things, and so we'll see. It's not like they're being difficult, I just think they're being, concerned about.
Yeah, well, anything we can do to help kind of cut through and expedite
Right,
this.
we can engage you with that.
Okay, great. Some of what the private sector companies do, and you hear about all of them, a lot of the tech companies, but Scott's Miracle-Gro and Target, and they have these very, very cutting-edge wellness programs, and some of what they do is they literally have a rebate at the end of the year that they pay back if you're working out 3 days a week or whatever the case may be. Every program's a little bit different, but have we explored anything along those lines of maybe opportunities for us to help staff who are getting healthy, who will bend the cost curve for us to reward that effort?
I haven't looked into it, but I'm going to look into it. We've had some internal discussions about that. There may be, some impediments, with using funds to do that, so you might have to work around that, but we could at least get some information together, on some of these things to make the case, because just on the wellness, the wellness thing has moved from wellness to well-being. It started out with just cost-cutting measures, so you could reduce benefits, but what has sort of happened in the industry is that they're really looking at the well-being of the employee, even in their personal life, everywhere. Because if everything is sort of decent all the way across, they're going to be a better worker, and they're going to be more more productive and all those other kind of things. So the discussions that I've had with the wellness office, I think it's now called the well-being office, but I think that we're trying to look at those kind of things too, so people up here can have a better experience. You just don't focus on what's going on here.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah, that's great. Paul, do you guys have anything going on within the Sergeant at Arms office, or?
Yes, as a matter of fact, last month I sent a notice out to all my employees reminding them of their value to the office and how they many times forget to take time for themselves, and have directed them to the Wellness Center and to all the resources that are available to them. And we had a Capitol Police Board meeting, as a matter of fact, last month, and also brought this up. The chief was sending a message out to his troops and was going to get back to the police board and report in on the status of his efforts in this endeavor, because we all know that it's, as you indicated, Mr. Chairman, the benefits you just can't put a price on to well-being. So thank you for your support on that.
You get real unhealthy real quick around here.
Yeah.
Not that any of us would know about that. No. Ms. Johnson, do you have anything going on?
Well, as you know, we started out this year, we kicked off with hearing from you. And you we had a clerk-wide meeting, and you talked to us about mindfulness and the importance of meditation, and even if you take 10, 15 minutes out of your day to just do breathing exercises. And I have followed up on that. We have certain units who are on a daily basis spending 20 minutes a day They've downloaded a tape from the Wellbeing Center and sitting in a room and listening to just some meditation exercises. Again, only 20 minutes a day, and they find that already it's making a difference.
That's great. I'm assuming it's not C-SPAN downloaded for them. That will get your blood pressure up, not down, right? This has been Ms. Rare Butler. Do you have any?
I had a couple questions. I apologize. I didn't see this in here in Mr. Kiko in your testimony, and I'm sure it wouldn't be in there. But give me the number again of employees in your care, like
700 approximately.
And within that, I saw in your testimony a number of initiatives. You know, it seems like customer service focused is kind of where you're taking folks, and a lot of different initiatives within that. How many different so offices? I think is how it was put out in your testimony. The office of. So we're talking about, you know, where to send people. One-stop shop for members. Shoot, I should have left it over.
What we're trying to do is we're trying to send
everybody to, like, they'll get the same information regardless of who they're calling, and there's kind of like a.
It's the Customer Experience Center is a new office that was set up to basically operate as sort of a one-stop shop, and we have hired, each office now has a customer advocate that they talk to, they circulate around to the different offices. Because one of the things I noticed when I came, and this was something that we looked at, the CAO provided 131 different services. Well, you know, if you're in an office and you're trying to figure out what service, who do you call? So we try to consolidate that into 31, and now we have this customer experience.
That was my next question. So you would say 31 different offices within that, or services?
It's not 31 offices. It's just we just tried to funnel everything into not offices but services. We tried to simplify it, and sometimes it has to be simplified. That was our first start. The next step is to try to, no matter, if you call a number, you'll get somebody on the phone, and they'll automatically connect you on the line to the service
that you're seeking. Okay.
Right. You won't have to talk to somebody, you know, and then they send it over, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. That's what I'm trying to do.
I appreciate your comments about, with regard to budget, you know, trying to bring some solutions to the table that will save money. And I assume in your request, you know, you cited the example about you can save $2 million by da-da-da. I assume you have other solutions like that are in the portfolio that were part of your request.
Yeah, depending upon what our budget, number is, we will make things work. We might have to push some things, off, and I may have to look at some things that, aren't being utilized that much, and maybe we need to, we need not to do them because, they're taking up too much money or something. But those are the things that we'll have to do. I
think the 24% increase is you hear certain things, we spoke about mandatory adjustments in salary, like no choice. Like when our Congress in its brilliance did, and now you're trying to figure out how to fulfill that obligation. Those are things we have to take care of. I was just curious about other cost-saving measures that you're like, hey, we could do this, and I'd save $2 million, which is what I just heard you say.
We didn't. We went through a savings exercise in the last year. We run some efficiencies out, and we're gonna wring some more out. The request that I submitted is what and I was telling you in the office last week, the request is what everybody thought we needed in the CAO, the chiefs, the ones that run these organizations. And I just made a decision that I was going to submit their requests to the committee, and that was going to be my budget rather than trying to cut it back myself. And then we would engage in a discussion, with the members as to what they think the priorities are. So, but we will always meet you know, whatever those priorities are, we will meet them. And but the one thing I don't want to get behind on is, and we sort of put off some things on these technology upgrades that we need for the finance office, and you know, we need for some of these IT. They're just, they support people getting paid. They support the processing of the vouchers. They support all those things. Some of it, now that we're in the cloud, it's better for cybersecurity, you know what I mean? And we can, you know, a lot of these things we can do that and the big providers can help us with. It makes it easier for cybersecurity because they're already upgrading everything. You don't have to do as many, you know, if it's on premise, it's harder. But that's sort of what I decided to do. But I think if you're really going to focus on, you know, and what I'm really going to do, if I have to, I'm going to focus on what do we need. I don't want to fall behind on these technology upgrades.
Absolutely.
If you fall behind, you know, then it's twice as much.
So just in making sure I understand then, so the budget that you submitted was from your, kind of your chiefs, what they penciled that they would like to have in this next go-around,
Right.
but you may, so we're going to need to know what is, however that happens.
We'll have to have a
Basic.
discussion as to what we really need and what
So-
we can put off.
And that's not necessarily reflected in the budget request.
What's that?
And that's not necessarily reflected in the budget request.
No, I mean, I think that, you know, there's some areas that are new. How much do you want to spend on modernization? You know, I have a $10 million plug number in for modernization, you know what I mean? And I have some other dollars in there for some things that people thought they might want to do, you know what I mean? I've had discussions with other committees on maybe some bulk purchasing ideas and stuff that would save money overall in the ledge branch budget, but not necessarily
In your budget,
specific-
yeah. Yeah.
So there's ways to do that. I'm trying to figure out ways to, you know, to take some of the burden off the member offices, you know, and the MRAs and stuff like that.
Although we did just plus up the MRAs.
Yeah.
Not that I want to waste money. I'd like to, the bulk purchasing thing, you know, there are things we should be doing to be efficient and effective because it's not our money, essentially.
I agree.
So, and I am interested to hear what the modernization committee members speak to us about. You know, knowing Derek Kilmer and knowing Tom Graves, they're very serious members. They're not going to be coming to us with a, you know, unicorn Pegasus wish list. I think they're very, that's quoting my daughter. Everything's about unicorn Pegasus right now.
The fact that I knew what you were talking about.
Yeah, right? Like, it's legit. But they're not going to do that. I know those members are serious members, and you know, what they have been looking through. There's a number of things in there that are designed to make us more accountable, more effective, more efficient as an institution, recognizing we're all here doing the same thing. We are all here just trying to serve the American people.
One of the things they had mentioned is, and we were looking at this at the same time, is the congressional management systems that each office uses, you know, to deal with constituents. I think it's a little clunky, and there's a recommendation.
The email system?
That it be upgrades. What's that?
The email system?
No, not the email system. The
When they
system-
want to do a meeting and they put it into the,
They put it into the system, or you're communicating back with constituents, you're doing casework, you know, there's
you mean
a
like
lot of-
IQ?
Yeah, that's one of the contracts.
Or
Fireside.
Fireside, yes.
It's just that, you know, that's a recommendation, is to improve that. And so I think that that's something that
Okay.
maybe should be looked at.
Okay.
Because that was a recommendation,
From the
and it
committee.
may or may not amount to a lot of money, but it may.
That's in there.
I think it's in
Okay.
there, yeah. Right? Yeah. Yeah, constituent engagement is what it's called.
Okay.
We're all about a constituent engagement.
Yes.
That.
We do. The lifeblood.
That is what we do. Thank you for that. One final, I think this would have been, might have been Clerk. I wrote it down. This is a bit of an aside, but I think this might be under your request with regard to asset management. Obviously, so we've struggled to maintain accurate inventories, partially because, and I observe this myself when you just walk down like the middle of a hallway and there's just stuff out there and, you know, somebody's written a note on it, please don't take this, this is Chairman Tim Ryan's favorite chair, but lo and behold, that chair may not be there the next time he comes.
How did you know that?
I had nothing to do with that. However, I have watched things like the Antiques Roadshow and seen a congressional desk on there. Granted, this was an old one. I don't know who sniped that, but it just got me thinking about the seriousness of that. It feels very loose in how we do it. And then you were talking about, you know, bringing someone on board versus having people who move furniture, you know, versus having them be a contractor, just in terms of the modernization there may save money, and it doesn't seem.
We have been taking a very hard look at asset management. We've been making a lot of changes, and I know there's a lot of offices that are, you know, get sometimes very frustrated at the self-inventory and things are missing. So what we've done is we're going to be moving on to a risk management kind of situation. Is what's in a member's office that's the most risk, whether it's data, whether it's, you know, on a phone. What do you really need to track and what you don't need to track? Usually, though, we do we know where a lot of furniture is, and we keep track of it fairly well. And a lot of times during a transition, it takes time to catch up with things too. You know what I mean? Because offices are moving, and you know there's members that haven't run for re-election, so we have to figure that out. But on asset management, we're making a lot of changes, and we're focusing on stuff that's high risk, like, you know, shouldn't you keep track of your computer? You know what I mean? But we have systems now on some of this stuff where we can automate as soon as it comes into the house. We can basically wand it. That's not what the real term is, but we can track
Barcodes.
everything, yeah, electronically. But I'll look at that a little bit more.
Thank you. Feel bad.
Thank you. Well, thank you. You all are phenomenal, and please, when you go back to the offices, thank your teams and staffs. We know, you know, it's tough business these days, but just sitting here over the last couple hours listening to all of you, we're in really good hands. We're very thankful. We're going to continue to support you. I've been trying to get out and about and see all of the people who work for you, and it's just been an amazing process for me too, to see who's stitching the chair together and who's, you know, fixing the desks and the tables and who's moving it and who's cleaning the office and all of this. There's a huge operation here that makes our government work, and you all are leading that effort, so we're very thankful. You know, I've told you each at least a few times, it's going to be a tough year. I mean, I think it's terrible. Ms. Herrera-Butler, you missed my opening statement, which was riveting, and I can give it to you later. But it was you know, enacted in fiscal year 11. Between 11 and 20, it was only a $100 million increase for Ledge Branch, which is all of the challenges and all of the things that we have to deal with not being addressed, and we're going to work really hard to get you as much as we can, but just know that it's tough, and we'll sit down with you to figure out what the priorities are as well. So thank you, appreciate it. God bless. This hearing is adjourned.